Welcome, everyone.
So,
Hello.
we are going to talk about just a few things that we have going on now and are coming up, and then there'll be a lot of time for Q&A, and people can ask questions and kind of fill in the details. So we'll just kind of give you the basic outline of what's going on with Greater Than Games. So last year we were here, and we talked a bit about a bunch of different projects we had going on. That was shortly after the merger with Dice Hate Me, and so now that's been going on for a year, so we have a lot more stuff. The companies are a lot more integrated in a lot of ways in terms of our workflow and in terms of products that are coming out, which is very exciting. So the current status for this Gen Con, we have some exciting new releases and some stuff currently going on. Our big release for this Gen Con is New Bedford, which is a lot of fun. If any of you have not had a chance to play it, I recommend go by the booth or go by the room. It's a resource management Euro game of historic whaling and Moby Dick era things, which is very, very fun. And then we have on Kickstarter right now the Fate of the Elder Gods, which just passed 100,000.
We just passed 100,000.
Super cool. So it is like overfunded, and there's various unlocked stretch goals already. But if you haven't checked that out, it is a Cthulhu Mythos game. So it's the kind of Lovecraftian Elder Gods come up trying to destroy the world. And in a lot of those games, you are trying to keep the Elder Gods in their Elder God zone, keep them down from coming around and destroying the world. In this game, you're trying to raise an Elder God and bring about the end of the world.
You are cultists.
Yeah, and every player is a different cult, trying to raise a different Elder God. So that's very exciting. So, and that's co-designed by Richard Launius, who designed some other well-known Cthulhu Mythos games like
You probably have heard.
Yeah. And then Daryl Lauder, who did for us Bottom of the Ninth and Compounded. And then Chris, and then so the three of them worked together and put this game together, which is kind of cool. So those are the current things that we have going on. And
The other big thing that we have is that for the first time in a long time, all of the Sentinels of the Multiverse line of products are back in print. We were out of print a bunch of things for a long time, just because of demand and where we were putting our resources. And so at this Gen Con, we have everything back in print, back in stock, and that will continue to be the case.
And that is true now of the bulk of the Dice Hate Me line in-print games as well. So there's Brewcrafters, which is a game about running a microbrewery, and it's a fun Euro game like that. And it's never been in print at Gen Con before, but it is now, which is very cool. So we're demoing that in our demo room, which is room 145. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's right across from the main expo hall. You can go in there. You can do scheduled demos, but also there are like pickup games. You can just go in there and play whenever there's an open table, which there is. They can schedule on purpose so that there's periodically open tables. And then we also have Great Heartland Hauling back in print, finally for the first time. It's a little smaller game about trucking, and it's fun. So we've got both of those to check out. And then Bottom of the Ninth is our baseball game that was not out yet last year at Gen Con, but is doing very well and is very fun. And so we have that. And then the final ones that we're working on from the Dice Hate Me line of getting back in print, hopefully by Christmas, are the 2 Viva Java games. So the games about the different coffee games, and then Bell of the Ball. Which I'll have back. So. Anyway, so that is the status of the back catalog of stuff getting caught up. Then in terms of upcoming things that we've already kickstarted, we can run you through the quick status update of that, and then go on to things that we have coming up in the future. So the list of upcoming to make sure we don't forget. So first of all, for the Oblivion Kickstarter, that is shipping out in 2 different waves. The first wave is going to ship as soon as we get back from Gen Con, which is the foil hero character card collection for everyone.
And if you haven't been by the booth yet, in the booth you got if you haven't been by the booth yet, in the booth we have a glass display case showing off some of the foil cards, and they look great. We have like 4 of them, 4 cases that they shipped over to the ocean to us, so we could see them. But we're getting the cargo container on like Tuesday when we get back.
Right. So we'll unload that and then start shipping them out, and there's 10,000 of them, so it'll take a while.
They look really good. The foil cards look.
So that's very cool. So that's them. So that's the first thing that will ship out right away that hasn't shipped out yet. Then after that, we're going to have there's a bunch of things that were on Kickstarter that are in various stages of being at the printer. There's the meta games, the three kind of like joke games that are real games, but jokes and real games that are Trader Mechanic, the Trader Mechanic game, Trick Taking, the Trick Taking game, and Time Management, the Time Management game. So those are just being sent to the few things that are just being sent to the printer now and are basically done. But hopefully those ones will have by Christmas as well. And the same thing goes for Bottom of the Ninth Clubhouse expansion, which we had on Kickstarter. Also, hopefully we have that by Christmas, because that's one that
hopefully
I think that
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But hopefully.
When that comes in. Yeah, because that one is, so Daryl is working on that one and the Fate of the Elder Gods Kickstarter, and so that's
at least by spring.
Yeah,
because that's when we promised it.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah, it'll be out by the delivery date.
It'll be out, yeah. That
Oh,
one
yeah,
is-
we're ahead.
That one's on
Yeah.
for delivery day, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
secretly cross fingers about. We'll see
And
what-
then we have Spirit
And
Island.
maybe exoplanets by Christmas.
Yes, that is
Oh,
true.
that's right,
We did
yeah.
Kickstarter. Yeah, and then Spirit Island is a little bit late, but you can see basically all final art and graphic design here at Gen Con, and that there's a whole. Now that we have all the art and graphic design finally done, what the final board is going to look like, there's a lot of proofreading and editing now that is like ongoing for the next couple weeks before we finalize those print files, because that game is so text intensive that we are trying to work on that and making sure that everything matches up and everything for that. So that is all of the ongoing projects, and then the Oblivion stuff is not at the printer yet. That's still being written and worked on.
Yeah.
But
We're still on track on our delivery date for Oblivion.
Yeah.
And with Oblivion, anybody that ordered the foil hero cards and other stuff, like if you got I got everything, that'll all be shipped out this month.
Yeah.
But then with the Oblivion stuff, we've got Oblivion playable in the booth, and we don't have the heroes or the environments with us. Those are actually very far along as well. Those are really far along. But we wanted to make sure that when people were playing Oblivion for the first time here, they didn't have to be learning a new hero and watching a new environment and also dealing with the Oblivion scenario. So that's why we're running stuff with standard stuff. But all of those are moving along very well. We've done a lot of really cool, innovative things with Oblivion to still be this big final boss fight that is not so complex as to be unfun or unwieldy. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff there. We're very excited about how well that's been going, and moving along quite well there.
Yeah.
And Adam's doing like 1 million arts for those.
There's about 350 unique pieces in that. So
Not counting the comic book.
yeah, not
Oh,
counting.
geez.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of art.
Yeah.
I'm about, I would say, 20-30% up with that right now.
Yeah, so that's about right. But
And then 2 big projects that are coming up. If you guys want to talk about like Legend of Sleepy Hollow. stuff.
Sure, yeah. Well, we have Legends of Sleepy Hollow coming up. We're working on that with Matt Riddle and Ben Pinchback, the designers of Fleet and several other awesome games. They're great guys to work with. Legends of Sleepy Hollow is essentially a campaign-based kind of, I don't want to call it legacy, but it's got some legacy elements in it that plays out. It's basically the sequel to Washington Irving's Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So what's happened is some townsfolk have banded together to go find out what happened to Ichabod, and they run into all sorts of supernatural occurrences and things like that, possibly even horsemen. I don't want to spoil anything,
You can't say that.
Heads, no heads.
So the kind of game, very just to clarify, like very vaguely category-wise, is a kind of campaign-driven like adventure.
Like a
board game.
dungeon crawl kind
yeah,
of.
adventure board games.
Yeah,
It's got
adventure
miniatures
board
moving
game.
around. You've got like stats. You make attacks against things that are coming at you from every angle, and the
Yeah.
guy with the shovel is the best. And I'm not designing it, so I get to say things like
Yeah, so it's really cool in the fact that when you finish a scenario, if you don't beat it, some things will happen. You'll be able to retackle it, but there'll be again, we don't want to call it legacy. It's just it'll upgrade, or you'll lose something, or you'll get some kind of bonus for the other scenarios that come up. Right now, we're designing it to be an 8 storyline campaign, and so you'll be able to play it 8 different times, but multiple times from that too, because you can play it different ways. And we also have a kind of sandbox mode that you can play with just introducing some of the bad guys and kind of playing through those things like that. We'll also have at the very beginning sort of a tutorial one where you kind of get into the game like a video game. So you introduce very slowly. You get your upgrades when you find things. It teaches you all the mechanics of the game very easily in probably about a 15-20 minute scenario. So that's going to be, it's just going to be a blast. And we're having a good time really playing around in that sort of 1790s era, and it's just a very different kind of environment than people are probably used to playing that type of adventure board game in. So
So that'll be probably February or so on Kickstarter. I'll have more information about it. But this is a kind of neat thing we're working on that's coming up. And another thing, the other upcoming Kickstarter for this fall, there's 2 other ones. There's going to be an expansion to Isle of Trains. So Isle of Trains is a little rabbit game that is so much game in this little box.
So much,
That's really
yeah.
the Sentinel game. If you haven't played it, you can go into a demo room and get a demo of it. And I will teach anyone this game. It is so fun, right? And it's really fast to learn. And because you're sort of managing the train and your resources and turning them in to like deliver goods along a train, but it's all just in like a 52 card deck. And the cards represent different things for the trains. Anyway, it's very fun. And so there's a little bit, the designers of it had like a set of ideas to add like a little bit onto the game with just like a few more cards and stuff like that. And so we're going to do a little Kickstarter for that expansion, things like that, probably in September.
We're
which will
still
be
trying to
exciting.
figure out the title.
Yes.
I really like Isle of Trains too.
I know. And TOO, by the way.
Right.
Somebody mentioned Isle of Trains More, which is
I love more trains.
Isle of Trains More, and then the one that we have a working title now is called Isle of Trains All Aboard, because that really tells you it has a board in it, and it also tells you that you're working with passengers. So it's pretty descriptive.
That is a better descriptive and probably a better product name. The other ones are better jokes.
But Isle of Trains TOO is my favorite, but we probably will go with All Aboard.
Yeah, no, it's a better name.
Yeah.
And then the other one that is happening in the fall, in late fall, is a game called Laser Riders.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's the best.
With a name like that.
Yeah, laser riders, and they are people who ride lasers. Come on.
There are
Yeah.
as many
Channel-
Y's and Z's as
Yeah,
you
we
care
know.
to
Yeah,
put
exactly.
that.
Channel your inner '80s kid.
Yeah.
This is like watching, like Galaxy Rangers opening, Mask, all this stuff. I mean, this is gonna be awesome.
So it's like like think about how like light cycle racing works, like that kind of game. It is sort of like that. And the board that you play it on is whatever the table you're on, whatever the size of the table.
And it works with any size table.
Yeah.
Well, any size table bigger than
Any
like
sort of
this.
reasonable table you
Yeah.
might actually have.
Right.
That's bigger than this.
Yeah, bigger than this.
Yeah. But this table would work great.
Yeah.
And each different player has a set of tracks, and the tracks, and there's a very early demo prototype set in our game room that you can see now. But in the final version of it, the tracks are all going to have like foil and UV printing on everything. It is going to be like 80s the heck out of it.
Yeah.
It's super cool. There's different characters for everything.
And you've got these
Everybody
circles
rides
that you're trying to hit. And what you do is you like lay down, okay, I'm going to put a straight piece, and then I'm going to put a curved piece, but if you're making a curve, you've got to roll a die to make sure you can actually make the turn and not just like veer off into space forever.
Yeah.
And you don't want to run in your line into somebody else's line. It's just this cool spatial game.
And the higher the gear you're in, the faster you can go and the farther you can go.
But it's also more
But it's
risky.
harder to
You
turn.
can't make
Right.
a sharp turn.
Yeah, and you can't make a sharp turn at all, and you might like accidentally go straight when you try to turn.
Yeah, which could
And then
mean
you
you
crash
fly
into
into
things.
somebody's line. Yeah.
And so it's super fun.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And that's by Nicole Klein and Anthea Amato.
Yeah.
They did Resistor.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's super exciting.
Yep.
And then next year, the other big Kickstarter we're doing next year is the Sentinel Comics RPG. That is designed by Dave Tucker and Cam Banks and Flip Kennard. Dave's in the back in a green shirt. He looks great and he waves sometimes. And so Dave's been running that game in our room, and I've been running that game in our room, and we'll keep doing that thing. And that's going very well. We've been, as many of you may know, we have been working on that for a while. We talked about it at Gen Con last year, and here we are still talking about it, not actually doing it. It's because we really want to take our time and make it like the best game it can be.
And making a good role-playing game that is a good game to play and fun to play.
Yeah.
And a good game to run and fun to run.
With
And
really
it's
good
character
GM
creation.
tools and the
Right.
character creation. Like, it's
Really
important to us
great.
that we don't drop the ball on any one of those aspects. We don't want to put a game out that's like, oh, it does all these things, but it fails in this area. But that's fine. It's not fine. So we care a little bit about the Sentinel Comics games.
But the only way to make an RPG that's really successful is to do all those things right,
Yeah.
because it's very, very tricky market to get into, and the only games that really do well are games like Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG, or games like Dungeons and Dragons, or games like Pathfinder, where there's an enormous amount of support around all of those aspects. And so we're basically competing with some of the biggest companies that are around to try to make it. So we want to make sure everything is real good before.
And so over the next year, between now and Gen Con next year, we're going to have a lot of information to put out, a lot of cool events that we're going to do, a lot of stuff on greaterthangames.com that's showing off different parts of the game, showing off the previews of art and mechanics and things like that. And then we will have, over Gen Con next year, the Kickstarter will be running, similar to the time slot that we're doing Fate of the Elder Gods this year. But also at Gen Con next year, we will have a starter kit for sale. So you can buy the starter kit and play the game, and it's right there. But then and at the same time, it's on Kickstarter for the core game and like some supplemental books that have more like mechanics and story things going on. So.
And the RPG also is set in a specific time in the Sentinel Comics.
Yes,
universe.
it is specifically set after the end of soon after the end of the Oblivion event, and so the ramifications of that, if you're in the booth or in the room, in the booth there is a standee of Legacy and of the Wraith, and in the room there's a standee of Baron Blade, and those looks for them you're like, these are slightly different than the Sentinels Multiverse. Those are the looks for the RPG. That is that's how they all look and act in the timeline that we're using for the RPG, and there's a lot of really cool story stuff that we're going to be putting out. But also, there's a lot of really cool story stuff that you can tell in that. It's not us about like with Sentinels: The Multiverse. We're like, hey, here's the story of the Sentinels: The Multiverse event, essentially. Whereas with the RPG, it's like, hey, here's a bunch of stories from us, but also like, here's a bunch of tools. Go tell your stories. Make these characters yours. Make your own characters, your own heroes and villains, etc., etc. So, yeah, lots of exciting things there.
The only other thing I can think of that I want to announce before we go to Q&A is that the video game for Sentinels: The Multiverse just today released a phone version.
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
So if you have a giant Android phone like this, you can finally play it.
It's finally time.
Yeah, and it's not just giant Android phones.
Yes, I know.
But
like
on
that.
small ones too.
You can play it on any
and
phone.
iOS, right?
But I have a giant Android phone and not a tablet, and I wanted to play it on this for
Yeah,
years.
but it's the phone. So I will say, both Adam and I, we talked about this a few weeks ago.
Sorry, you can't flip phone now.
No. Adam and I were talking about like a month ago. We were like, well, like there's it's definitely the phone idea is a good idea, but we're not sure if it's going to work. We're worried about like all that information you have to have on the screen. And then the first time that Adam and I both saw it, we're like, oh no, this is great. I like this.
This
I like
is way
this so
better.
much.
Yeah, a lot of people have said it. They actually like it better than the tablet or the Steam UI.
That is
If
true.
you haven't tried it,
Yeah.
give it a try.
Yeah.
It is universal. So if you already own it for your tablet, you already own it for your phone, as long as they're on the same
Yeah,
both
so there's
iOS or both
There's
Google.
only
or-
3, like it's iOS, Android, and
Steam. So like my Steam account's not going to attach to my Google account,
Right.
but my Google account and my Google account are the same account.
Yes, as long as you're both your phone and your tablet are attached to the same account, then you own it for both. Already. So.
Cool. All right, and so we already have a question, but I guess we'll start the Q&A section with this question.
Yeah, I noticed there was a glaring omission of a Sentinel Tactics comment in there.
All right. So here we go.
about that, yeah.
Yeah. So since, that's because we're not going to do another Sentinel Tactics game. He said misleadingly. Yeah, let's just do this. It'll be fun. So Sentinel Tactics is a game that we really genuinely love, and we put a lot of effort into. We put a lot of time, put a lot of money, put a lot of art, like. All the different things you can put into it, we
Blood,
did those
sweat, and
things.
tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. Well, they are actually in there. There's a card that has
Yeah,
all 3 of
yeah.
them. Yeah, citizens.
If you own the game, you're familiar.
Okay. So, and it did not really perform the way we would hoped it had. There were some issues with the game itself, but beyond that, there was a lot of people that were like, "Oh, this is like a hero clicks. I don't need that." It was, like, getting into that market was not good, and it didn't go the way that we wanted to for the level of game, for the strength of game that is Sentinel Tactics. And so, rather than just like saying, okay, and then we talked about, we're going to put out this, Broken City for profit thing that we talked about, and we were going to do that.
We were met with a lot of mixed response on that.
Yeah,
so.
there was a very mixed response on that. And so rather than just saying, okay, here's another thing where we're going to do the same thing again, but slightly better, we're like, let's take a couple steps back. Let's make this the best it can be. Let's take our time and let's put it out. And so after, we've already put out some preliminary steps to playtesters, and playtesters have already been working on it, and they know what sort of things I'm about to say. But also, as soon as I'm done with Oblivion, I'm really turning my focus on the Sentinel Tactics stuff so that we can do stuff with that. The reason I keep hesitating is because we're not calling it Sentinel Tactics anymore. There's a new product we're putting out called Prime War. That involves the characters, the heroes of the Primordans, plus their good friend and ally who is now part of the team, Skyscraper, and they are fighting against some of their exciting villains. And this is going to mechanically work in a lot of ways very similar to Sentinel Tactics. It's going to use the same die code stuff. It's going to have some mechanical differences, and we're going to release a series of panels and cards to update your Flame of Freedom and your Uprising boxes to make sure that if you're like, hey, I want to use these things together, totally can. Still totally works. But really notably, we want to make sure that the Prime War set in that, the skirmish stuff works really good, and we have a few different skirmish modes, and we have a lot of different gameplay information we're putting in on that side of things. We're very confident about how that stuff works. In terms of the scenarios, we're looking to come at it in a really different way, in a way that we haven't done it before. And I don't want to say a lot about that right now, because I'm still experimenting with exactly what I can do. But we have a lot of really ambitious goals, and we want to make sure that if we're going to do another Sentinel Tactics game, we don't just or another Sentinel Tactics-esque game, we don't just put it out and be like, few hundred, maybe 1,000 people that like it, buy it, and then it just sits in a corner forever. We want to make it the sort of product that it deserves to be. And so right now, like, I've just said a bunch of things that are kind of news, but the news is we don't have any specific news for you yet. Anybody that pre-ordered Broken City /For-Profit is going to either get the Prime War set and the expansion that comes with it, the Rise of the Ennead. You'll get those things, or if you're like, no, I don't want to pre-order it anymore because this is different, that's fine. We'll refund you, that's fine.
Yeah, so if you're in that situation, you want to talk to me more about it. Like, we'll refund anyone that doesn't want to wait. If you want to wait around with that and you pre-ordered it, you'll get it.
You're gonna get it, and you're gonna get more stuff and bigger stuff than.
Yeah, and everyone who pre-ordered it will also get that upgrade kit that upgrades all the Flame Freedom and Uprising stuff
for free. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said, we really want to take our time on it. There's one thing that we've noticed and learned a lot from with working on the RPG is like, man, you know what? Let's figure out what our development cycle is on this, and giving the new wave 2 of Sentinel Tactics, and which is called Prime War, the development cycle that it deserves, gives it a better chance to be the game that we all want it to be, and we're not in a huge rush to kick it out the door. So that's where we are on that. Cool. Any questions before we move into more general questions? Any questions like following up on that specifically? Because I want to make sure that.
I want to ask about minis. Are you gonna keep doing minis for Prime War?
So no.
Aww.
No. The minis were one of the things that was not the majority of people didn't really want them, and the only way that minis are really worth it is if you make a lot of them. And if we're not selling a lot of them, there's no reason to make a lot of them. So we're exploring other ways to do to still represent the characters and have them move around and have them be interesting and dynamic without going into all of the effort of the plastic minis.
Yeah. So we're still that's still one of the things that's in the yes, in the hopper of pondering that, and yeah.
Other questions on the Prime Wars or the Sentinel Tactics? Excellent. Other questions not about those things? Great.
Just for curiosity, how did you pick which villains you were going to make heroes in Oblivion?
Oh yeah, so they were all destined from beyond the stars to fill these roles.
There was definitely a plan of one from each set.
Right, as each set has one. So like you get Baron Blade from the core game, and like each expansion features a villain who is acting heroically, and some of them like Baron Blade are like, hey, I'm working on the side of the heroes. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Luminary is a hero. Certainly not like base Luminary, but he's working alongside the heroes. Whereas the Harpy, like the Matriarch, was always going to have this turn, which is why we saw in like Shattered Timeline's Arch this completely different sort of thing. The Wrath of the Cosmos stuff. And
that's why she dropped off the radar for a whole long time. I mean, there's a lot of game space that doesn't picture her showing up. So.
There's a lot of game space that doesn't picture a lot of game. But there's the easy answer is that's the way that they were intended to be. But there was a lot of intentionality behind that too.
I mean.
So, when you started with the Sentinel Comics series, did you have an entire story arc that was going to be 5 years of game?
So,
or did you have some rough ideas and a direction?
We thought it would take
we thought it would take longer. We didn't think we'd be able to do all of it.
That is exactly, yeah. We were like, so Oblivion, the end point of Oblivion was there from the beginning. And there's a lot of big things that we really wanted to do over the course of the game. And we were like, well, we're never going to get to that point. But let's create as if we are. Let's write as if we are. Let's put these...
That explains the art references from the very beginning.
Exactly. There's art and story stuff that starts in the beginning that, like, I mean, you see Aeon Man in the very first box. And, like, there's all the different stuff that does not come to fruition until the end. And we were like, okay, even if we never get there, let's act like we're gonna. Because that's what we wanted to do, and because it's just like better creating in the process. And so with a lot of that, it was the point that we got really excited about. The midpoint was the Shattered Timelines. We're like, oh man, Shattered Timelines. We get to do like we did the Iron Legacy stuff. There's so many cool things with Shattered Timelines. So the shattering of timelines is only possible because of Oblivion. Like Oblivion is the entity that shatters the timelines, and so like everything going back is there. And we're like, okay, so we get to the halfway point. If we can keep this going. But we definitely didn't think that like the 5-year anniversary of the release of Sentinels of Multiverse, we'd be sitting here with demos of Oblivion playing upstairs. Like this is ridiculous. This is it's really a dream come true for us. And so the fact that we're here and doing that is huge.
I have a titanium question. Which is, can you tell us any more about that campaign game, or would that be prying too hard?
Legends?
Yeah. That sounds hot.
Sure, why not?
It should be fun. Yeah.
Let's just leave it alone. Well, the core storyline centers around four townsfolk who have banded together. And the four townsfolk, there's a Revolutionary War veteran, Matthias, who has basically broke his dual flintlocks out of the war case he carries around in. So he's brandishing dual flintlocks. We've got Emily Van Winkle, who is the tanner. She's actually an apprentice tanner, but she's an expert hunter. She grew up outside on the outskirts of town, and she's great with a bow. We have Jeremiah, who is the Undertaker, which is who Chris was referencing. He knows how to wield a shovel.
I was going to ask about the art direction for the game.
Oh, the art direction.
Also, in addition to
in addition to
Keep going.
And then we have Isaiah, who is the preacher. He's a minister. He's Dutch Reformed minister, and basically he's the support for the team. But also he's got a little bit of a checkered past. So we have a lot of opportunity for story in this game, which is going to be really cool. As far as art goes, that's what we're doing here at Gen Con. We're going to be going through the art row and looking for the artists to embody this. I want it to be more like, to feel like a 1790s kind of, like an oil painting.
Like you get those murals.
Yes.
Those big murals that are like, this is the chart of history.
Right.
That's
And there's
really
actually there's an historic painting of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow that kind of evokes the feeling that we want for this game. We don't want to go overtly cartoony. We want to be a little bit more realistic in all this, and so because it'll actually create a good balance with the supernatural occurrences that are going on in the game as well. So it'll ground it in reality, but yet there's all these weird, crazy supernatural things happening. The storyline itself centers around them trying to figure out if, at the end of Legend of Sleepy Hollow, if anybody's not familiar with it, spoilers, Ichabod Crane disappears, and the reader is left up to decide whether it was really the Headless Horseman that was to blame for that, or if it was Brom Bones. And so the storyline will pick up at the end of that book, and kind of they're going out and figure out, well, we know Brom's done stuff like this in the past, so we're going to go see if Ichabod's all right, and then they start getting embroiled in a lot of crazy stuff that happens. But again, all kind of, it's the core of it's based around, because the Tarrytown where it was based was a Dutch settlement, so there's a lot of Dutch flavor behind it. Lots of 1790s era Dutch influence. The Dutch Reformed ministers in that. We've got hexes, a lot of different things.
And the mythology from
all
there.
the mythology from that era.
Like, so the little, like,
You get attacked by little
Yeah.
pumpkins.
Yeah, gobkins. So little gobkins are animated pumpkins, and we've got Shriekroot, and Shriek is the base for shriek, which is Dutch for fear. This is all kind of based around this kind of Dutch mythology, and they're all from the old world, from the old Dutch. A lot of their superstitions and stuff are brought up in the New World, and this will be carrying that into this 1790s realm of Americana.
And because it's the historical literary Americana game, it's going to be a Dice Hate Me title under that imprint, and it's going to be the first game that we make as a dragon-sized game. If you follow the Dice Hate
Everything
Me
else
size
is
of the stuff.
small.
Yeah. So.
Hopefully it'll all fit in a dragon box.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Has to fit in the pocket, Chris.
Everything always fits in the box for Dice Hate Me titles. So whether somebody tells you it doesn't,
Don't
it
let
does.
down.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess there's a story there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I
They all
make
fit in
games
tin
that fit
cans.
boxes. I don't make
they fit in
boxes.
coffee cans.
Yeah.
They fit in coffee.
They all fit in coffee cans.
No.
All right.
Is the Java Reaper going to be in a coffee can?
Nope.
A really big coffee can.
Yeah, we actually explored that option a while back, and the problem with that is retailers will hate us. So, yeah.
And our warehouse will be,
And it takes up way more. It's
Yeah.
a very suboptimal design for any kind of packaging.
It could be spheres.
Yeah,
It could be a sphere of
Sphere.
spheres. Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever,
perfect.
spoiler alert, we're never making a game that's in a sphere.
You heard it here, folks.
That's what you're saying now.
I
Is
don't
it
know
right?
how trendy
Just
sphere
figured out.
boxes.
Become one. Draw a line in the sand.
All right.
Other questions?
So does that mean that the Isle of Trains expansion will be like the Clubhouse expansion, and it'll be a bigger box?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, we're trying to decide whether it will be a monkey or a chunky monkey. We'll see. It might be a chunky monkey.
I still think the chunky monkeys should be called gorillas.
Oh, let's get the Chinese Zodiac, man. Chunky Monkey?
The Chunky Monkeys are the kind of.
It's in the Zodiac.
Okay. You've convinced me.
But yeah, we'll kind of make that decision once I kind of spec out everything, whether we go with small meeples or we go with larger. And then I'm tempted to put it in the Chunky Monkey box, if that means that we can actually add more to it later if it does really well. So we'll see.
Will you guys be going away from Kickstarter for more products and more just direct retailers?
So it depends on the product. We've actually, I've talked to different game companies about this and kind of we've experimented with it both ways. And right now, the way that the industry works is, I'm of the belief that it's always correct, at least for a new game, to use Kickstarter, because that's where people now go to learn about new games. And that's where people expect new games to be, and the marketing for new games to be. So until you're at the point of having the marketing team that one of the subsidiaries of Asmodee has, or something like that, it's just much better. A game will do much better. More people will learn about it and be excited about it when it's on Kickstarter instead. And so it's worth paying Kickstarter their percentage for that additional marketing.
It's a marketing cost. It's not just marketing. It also does, but it's also valuable market research.
Yeah.
Because if we put up a game and nobody backs us, it's
oh, that's great, right?
Thank you for letting us know.
Right, exactly. And we can iterate on things and figure that out, and it makes sure that all the games are a lot better. But we spend a lot of money and time on games before we put them on Kickstarter. The games get to the point where they're almost done before they go on Kickstarter. But for the foreseeable future, we'll continue to use that at least for new games. Some expansions for things won't necessarily always be, but kind of back and forth trying to figure it out.
On the subject of Kickstarter,
Yeah.
with the Sentinels Oblivion, there wasn't an easy option for retailers. I'm
Oh,
really,
every-
I'm really
yes.
lucky with
Every
a
single-
very nice
yeah.
local game store that I
Yeah.
wanted to purchase Oblivion
Right.
through, and I held off several weeks into
Yeah.
Kickstarter
Yeah.
before I backed it.
Yeah,
because
here's the interesting thing
I've
about
hoped.
retailers. So it's always a line. I always want to work with a retailer to get them what they want. And so retailer interactions I will do via email during the Kickstarter to kind of customize for them what they want, because it's very hard to craft a one-size-fits-all Kickstarter solution for retailers. And I've tried in the past, and it's not always right. It's not always what they really want, right?
A Kickstarter, a retailer pledge level
Right.
is going to be too big or too small or not exactly correct.
Right, yeah.
And not really
And
working.
then on
And
top-
artificially inflates the numbers.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I always want to be careful if I'm having a retailer go through the Kickstarter system that we don't sell them too many things at once, because the Kickstarter terms of service actually say you're not allowed to sell more than a certain number of copies of a given thing on, I think it's 10, but it's something like that for on a Kickstarter. You're just not allowed. It's against the terms of service. So if a retailer wants to get more stuff, I don't want to violate that,
Yeah.
right?
Makes
So
sense.
I'll instead just deal with them as I would sell to a retailer just directly, and we'll sell that way. And so definitely always have them email me, and I will certainly get to responding to retailers before the end of the campaign. Right now, I have a few emails queued up that came in the week before Gen Con or at Gen Con for the Fate of the Elder Gods Kickstarter,
Right.
which I will get to before it ends.
It's Gen
But
Con,
it's Gen
come
Con,
on.
so
But yeah, no, if a retailer wants to buy for a game that we have on Kickstarter, great. Shoot us an email. We can do that.
yeah. So,
I don't recall whether or not they said that they were
yeah,
in contact.
and that's fair. So yeah. Other questions?
You said you guys were fairly early in the Prime War development cycle, and I was wondering if there's any plans to have greater than sponsored tournaments like you did for Tactics.
I'd like
And
yes.
Again, that's way in the future,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
Yep. When we come back to it, this is one of the reasons we want to take the time off of it, so that we can take the time off, really make it right, make sure that the scenario support is what we want, make sure that there's the story is crafted the way and all those different things, and then that way when we come back, we're like, okay, it's been time. We're really sorry, but here we're back with Prime War and Tournament Explosions.
The whole tournament thing.
Because that tournament thing we did was awesome.
It was awesome, and it made the game sell really well.
Right.
Because that focuses on the most fun way to play. And so we're taking a lot of data from the fact that, this game sells, as well as Sentinel Multiverse 4 game when we do that and teach people that way of playing it.
But we
right?
can't just always run really expensive tournaments just to sell a game.
Constantly around.
Turns out.
So we want the game to teach itself in that way, right? Without us having that. But, that having been said, when Prime War comes out, even if that's Gen Con 2018 or something like that, I want to get the band back together and do that big tournament.
is there plans to do a grassroots not really.
Yeah, no, we want to
tournament
we want to
structure.
put we want to do tournament support for stores and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Like local qualifiers sort of things.
Sure.
I would like to, so that'll be something that we play around.
There's
and
been a
see.
lot of talk about tournament kits for stores. So
Yeah.
some
I've been talking to some distributors actually this Gen Con already about the idea of that and what they would like to see in that and what works for them and what doesn't. Because we tried to do a little bit of organized play stuff in the future, but I'm trying to do more research about what other companies do that's successful for that works, what stores like, what helps a store market and sell a game. And so we already have some notes on that topic, which is good.
That was good. It's like, I hope you're not falling asleep because I've got a question for you.
I'm
Which
just-
is,
I'm good.
from the start to the finish, could you tell us about how you feel like you've improved as an artist and what you've learned? And were they Dragon Ball Z traces at the start? I need to know.
There were never traces.
Okay.
Nothing was ever traced. Good work.
You promise?
Yeah, no, I promise I've never traced anything.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
Get it
So
off my chest.
when I started, I was very rushed with a lot of that stuff. I had to do a whole lot in a very short amount of time.
When you had a different full-time job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I
It
had
was
a
not your
different full-time
full-time
job. I would work 8-hour days at my regular job and then come home at 11 at night and draw until 7 in the morning and then go to sleep and then repeat. Was what I was doing back then. So my quality suffered certainly as a result, and my
You've also improved like
health
significantly.
But then, yeah, since then I've drawn 2,000
Yeah.
pieces over this, and it's impossible to not improve. With
When
that.
did you quit your job to do this full time?
At
2013?
mid
Early
Infernal Relics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mid
So-
Infernal Relics. I did half of Infernal Relics while I was working another job, and then
Because it was like April 2013 when you moved.
Yeah, that's when you moved after
yeah,
that,
that's
right?
when I moved out. But I quit before that.
Yeah.
So actually, it would have been 2012. I
Yeah,
thought.
late 2012 when you
2012.
quit the other full-time job, and then
Yeah.
April 2013 when you moved to St. Louis. Yeah, and then
So your art's
Yeah.
super punchy and dynamic now. I really like it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just a lot of
if you do
a lot of
something
experience.
yeah,
and,
full-time for years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and a lot of learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you draw 2,000 things, you're bound to change.
Yeah, come into if any of you want to, since you're here, I'll tell you the secrets. If you come into our demo room, I have one set of the foil cards, the foil hero variant cards, there that you can actually like look through, and they have all new art on them that Adam did in the last.
For like character cards from the original
Yeah,
game.
right. And like, every single piece of character art in there is new for that set, right? And so this is pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks.
Short of doing the math, if I wanted to sleeve all of Sentinels, do you have a number for that?
Andy,
2 minutes.
Yeah.
what's the number for that? How many cards are there in entirety that are in Sentinels of the Multiverse? I know you've done the math.
Okay, the simple answer is 3,200.
Okay, there you go.
There are complexities.
Right, I realize. But like, if you have like ostensibly all the Sentinel stuff, you have roughly 3,200 cards.
If you print Clover's Legacy, you have 3,201.
That's not a Sentinels of the Multiverse card.
It's canon, it's just not published.
Not canon. It's a canon event. It is a canon character. It's not a canon
It is
card.
apocryphal.
And wildly inaccurate?
Yes, might want to check the forums about that.
I don't need touching that.
But anyway, yeah, Andy knows the answers to these
Yeah,
questions.
and Andy's, but every time we put it, when did you start doing that? Did you start doing that with Shadow Timelines or something? Or that every time we put out a new set, Andy would post a big thing on the
It
forum?
was just within me and it came out.
Yeah. Andy likes counting things.
Sure, I do.
He really does. All right. So yeah, there you go. But here's the deal. You could, how much? So I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a Q&A. How much is your time worth? Because if you're gonna take all the time to sleeve those cards plus the price of buying those sleeves, it's just cheaper to buy a new game like every couple of years.
Just buy a new set of
Just
Sentinel
buy.
Multiverse.
Just go ahead and buy like 5.
Yeah.
And set 4 aside.
Right.
And you can play it so much that you just get.
Oh, this one's getting
Well,
worn
we're
out.
gonna, and if you don't have the money for that, we're gonna keep making it and printing it.
It's true.
So like, once it wears out, buy a new set.
Oh,
It'll save you so much time and money.
I can understand that logic. It's just most of it is already sort of sleeved.
Sort of sleeve. Like the sleeves are halfway on the
They were
card.
buying
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
sleeves were you doing? They were wanted the cheap sleeves.
There's a piece of
Quite
plastic
fit
next
the
to it.
cards properly. So I have held off buying new sleeves, waiting for a final number. And at the time, it was if you're going to play a hero that isn't sleeved, you have to sleeve them first. So I wasn't doing all the sleeving.
Also, we do a lot of stuff where it's just like you're not doing anything with your hands while you're doing this. So
This is called watching Netflix.
Yeah, fair enough.
We have 3 or 4 RPGs a week.
Alrighty. More questions? Yes.
I have one.
Yeah.
For Galactic Strike Force.
Yeah.
Is there possible for in the future to either revisit, expand that game?
Yeah.
And
We were talking about this like
And then-
a few weeks ago.
the second part of the question is it possible in the future when they're done with Sentinel's electronic, would we ever revisit maybe doing an electronic version of that?
It's a question for him.
So here's what I'm going to answer the questions for
And
everyone.
I didn't realize at first that he was here until I heard his voice, and I said, "Oh, I know his voice. I listened to the YouTube videos."
So the yes, we're gonna in the future, do something with Galactic Strike Force because there's a lot of great stuff there.
We like the lore, we like all the stuff about it.
Yeah.
That's years and years and years from now.
But we're gonna do something with it. Like that is going to happen. There's a multiverse. There's a reality in which we don't do something with it, and that is if I was like if the company in the next 3 years like folds in on stuff like a flan on the cupboard, then sure I guess we're done. But no, like we're gonna do something with it.
Or Asmodee buys us and they said,
Yeah, right. There's a
Which
price,
is an
but-
eventuality. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
no interaction with
Once
them.
no, don't start that rumor. But I wouldn't want to do a video game of it until we did that revisit to it. I mean, we could and it would work, but like since with the like revisiting plans, I'd rather like have a video game of what we.
And we could, this is a conversation we could have at some point. If you ever want to, when we do this, like years and years from now, have a simultaneous video game
launch.
release,
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Well, and to sort of expand a little bit on that, we've had many, many conversations about what games in the combined now Dice Hate Me Greater Than Games library would make awesome digital tabletop games. Back before they merged, Galactic Strike Force was one of them because there were 3 of them altogether.
Yeah.
Now, with the library that there is, I think and I think Paul and Christopher and I talked about this, we agree, there are a number of other ones that would be much better fits. And also, quite frankly, a lot faster and easier for us to develop. You know, when
Galactic Strike Force, you're going to have to have weekly calls to John and John.
exactly.
Mark and I.
When we fell in love with Sentinels, the card game, and said we want to make this, and then started making it, and we were like, man, it would be cool if we didn't make this game first.
Because think about how much you've learned.
Exactly. I mean, we've been working on that game now for more than 2 years, and we're maybe half done. Maybe.
Good luck.
You know, and we
Maybe
love
even
it,
done
and I
maybe.
get excited every time we release a new thing. But as a team, we are also really excited to work on other projects and more projects and get new other fun, awesome digital tabletop games out there. So so that's kind of a bit of a longer answer. Would we like to make a Galactic Strike Force game? Absolutely. It'll probably be a better Galactic Strike Force game after they've had a chance to look at it.
So what games are you thinking of doing in Bars next?
I'll give you. So here's our list of my 3 sort of wish list games, and they're actually in order of how difficult they would be and how quickly we could get them done. Deck building game, because we could probably blast that out in a month if we had the time to do it.
It took me
And
less
I
than a
think
month to make that game.
so that's what I'm saying. and it would, I think, would play really awesome on, especially on a tablet and a phone. You know, obviously at this point we would probably go tablet, phone, and Steam with anything that we would do, but especially a phone version, that would be fantastic. Second one is Bound the Night, because we've, you know, it's selling really well, and I think there isn't really anything like it, I don't think, in the market in any way. And I think that it, especially the whole Dice Hate Me concept of the sort of like Eurogame concept, but with Americana feel, like that is a really interesting space to explore in digital tabletop, I think. And then the third one is Compounded, because I think Compounded can actually teach you science, number one, so there's like an educational angle, but it's also just such a fun game to play. And I think, you know, so that's small, medium,
sound effects.
slightly larger. What's that?
There's gonna be sound effects of things blowing up in there.
Yeah, something like that. So that's kind of our top 3 right now in terms of, you know, if we have a small project, a medium project, and a slightly larger project that we want to work on next.
Good question. Galactic Strike Force question.
See, it ain't open to the whole. Any other questions?
I just heard about the iOS games. Made me think of Tabletopia. Are any of your titles on that? I haven't explored that at all.
Yes.
Oh, they are?
Yes, I think
Viva
yes, some of them
Dice
are.
is on there, and Exoplanets is on there.
Oh yeah.
mostly what's been put on there has been through volunteers.
Yeah.
So they've kind of done it. They've asked for the art. Like, for instance, Viva Java, they contacted us and said, "Can we use the art? I'm going to build something table delivery." I'm like, "Yeah, please." So we don't have any hard and fast plans to put more of our product on there. We would like to, obviously. I mean, it's a great platform for people to be able to play the game, and it's not really super involved to do it. It's just you need the art assets and kind of know the platform itself. But I mean, if anybody out there wants to adapt our games for Tabletopia, absolutely contact us. They can do it. We'd love to have it on the platform.
I do want to ask, do you have any thoughts on Tabletop Simulator and on your games on that?
Not really. Next question. It's definitely a good platform for playtesting. It's a good platform for getting people involved digitally, but no, not that I know, no hard and fast thing for that. I probably would see us pushing more for Tabletopia than Tabletop Simulator, just simply because the platform seems to be a little bit more robust and more user friendly. So.
Oh, there we go.
You haven't mentioned Sentinels RPG. Is that going to be D20 based?
Oh, sorry, we're making our own system for that. It is completely.
We're making special dice for it too.
No, you're not kidding.
Yeah, the story there is that's what Fantasy Flight does.
17-sided dice.
Right. The story there is that if we make a game with custom dice, that the price point of that game jumps significantly for us, for you, for everybody.
The reason we're not making custom dice is because we don't have the Star Wars license.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
What if you released it in a spherical box and used that as the die?
All right. All right. I think we're done here. The system for it is something brand new, and it's really exciting. And if you want to know more about it, I would suggest coming by room 145, because there's in the back of the room there's a table. There's an orange tablecloth, unlike all the blue tablecloth tables. And on that table we've got nigh constant RPG events going there, and those are all booked and sold out. But you are welcome to lurk. It is totally fine if people want to ooh, what's going on here? It's don't be weird about it. So, you can be a little weird.
And we'll have more next year when the game is actually.
And we'll have lots of we'll have a lot more next year, and we'll have a lot of information between now and next Gen Con. A lot of information coming out. So.
Anything else?
All right. Excellent.
Good. Good times.